Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Creating Wealth. My name is Marjorie Roman, and as always, we have the honor of learning from this super entrepreneur, Robert Allen. Thank you so much for coming over.
Ta-da!
And today we're going to talk about your predictions for 2023. You have been through a couple of economic cycles yourself. You have seen how history has changed and also how it has affected certain properties that you had. So first of all, in the case of mortgage rates, do you think they're going to decline? What are your predictions on that?
I'm going to give you two answers. One is going to be strange, and the other one is going to be common sense. Mm-hmm. So the common sense answer is yes, I think mortgage rates will be lower next year. Why? Because the entire government is hoping that somehow or other we can get this inflation under control. Mm-hmm. And I think we're starting to see some little glimmers in the future about that happening. Mm-hmm. As long as inflation starts getting lower and lower, then interest rates are going to be affected immediately. And therefore, I think the entire government is designed to get those interest rates lower. Why? Because remember, the government borrows money, trillions of dollars. And if their interest rates are higher, that means their mortgage payments on the government are higher. And so it makes a huge difference when the interest rates are 1% and 2% versus 4 or 5%. It's just huge, billions and billions and billions of dollars. So therefore, I predict that the interest rates will be slowly getting lower and lower and lower over the next couple of years. Now, this is macroeconomic stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't play macroeconomics. I don't care, frankly. I don't care what you read in the newspapers. Macroeconomics meaning what is the unemployment rate? What is the mortgage rates? What is the inflation rate? All of that is not necessary for you to really understand. You're always looking for a highly motivated seller. And in many cases, you're going to have the seller carry the financing. That means the seller is going to be the bank. Mm-hmm. Now, 40% of the properties that are available for sale in America right now are free and clear, have no mortgages on them. Mm-hmm. And therefore, the mortgage rate you negotiate with the seller is really a matter of negotiation. Mm-hmm. You're looking for a highly motivated seller who doesn't want the property, wants to get rid of it, might be willing to carry financing at a rate that's equal to or lower than what the average mortgage rate is in the United States. Mm-hmm. So you can negotiate with a seller directly rather than going to a bank, and the bank has a certain standard based upon whatever the going interest rate is at the government. And they basically take that figure and add a couple of points to it, and it's pretty stable and it's pretty consistent, constant. Therefore, when you go to a mortgage broker, you can't negotiate that. Mm-hmm. But when you go to a seller directly, there are millions and millions of sellers directly want to sell the property, and you can show the seller why if they become the bank, mm-hmm. if they carry the financing is what it's called, that they can win in a different way. So maybe what would happen if they took all their cash? They have to pay all the taxes, and then they would what are they going to do with the cash? Sometimes they really don't want the cash. They just want to have that money grow at a rate of return that's reasonable. So you say, okay, I'll pay you 5% interest, mm-hmm. and I'll give you your price. Whatever you want. If you give me the terms, mm-hmm. I'll give you your price. Or if you want your price, then it's my terms. And my terms means 10, 20% below the market, all cash. I'll do that with you. You want all cash? Yeah, give me the price. Mm-hmm. If you want low down payment, then give me the terms, which means you carry the financing, I'll make you monthly payments at an interest rate that's below the market.
That's true, yeah.
So the ordinary investor really doesn't know what I just described. Mm-hmm. They just think that the realtor is the one who controls everything. The mortgage banks, they're the ones who control everything. There's no flexibility whatsoever. This is just the way it is. This is not the way it is if you're an investor like me. you search for situations where you can negotiate the best rates. Therefore, I don't care what the interest rate is. I don't care what the unemployment rate is. I don't care if we're in a recession or not. I know that more than likely everybody needs a house over their head, so I'll probably be able to rent it out without any trouble. And therefore, the only thing I really care about is can I rent it out for enough money to cover my mortgage payment? And that's the real number. If I can get a positive cash flow with a small down payment, hey, I'm going to buy one of those any day of the week. And it's just totally counterintuitive from what the retail real estate game is. We're in the wholesale game, and we play by different rules. They're called the creative real estate rules. And these are our times. We've been waiting for a time like this for 10, 12 years, just hoping that one of the sellers would finally, get knocked upside the head and become a little more flexible. It seems as if the real money has finally figured it out. The stock market is nice. It's a great place to get your liquidity and get some cash and hopefully long-term rates of return. But they finally figured out that real estate is the ultimate way of creating wealth. So finally, over the last 5 years, the big money has been coming into single-family home investing and small apartment building renting, buying. And so we got billions and billions of dollars that are just searching for these real estate deals out there. It's just like we're now competing with lots of money out there. What you're looking for, you're not the big investor. You're not going to buy 100 houses this year. You're going to buy 5. Most of the people who are listening to my podcast are little guys and little girls. They're the little people. And you need 5 properties this year. You can do this. One of my students just found somebody who had 7 properties that they were willing to get rid of. Why? Because they were investing in last year's strategies. And therefore, the properties had dropped in value. Then they're going to require more fix-up. So, we're going to have situations like this all over the place. You just need to be patient and to be out there looking for off-market deals, deals that are not listed with real estate agents. Most of these single one-off deals are people who will never meet these big money investors. They're looking for somebody who is building a neighborhood of 30 brand new houses, and big money will come in and buy all 30 of them, right? That's big money investing. We're small money investors. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to make big money. This is a small market investor is going to make serious money, just 3 or 4 or 10 times more than you're normally used to making. But you can do this. You can do this.
If anything, I feel like small money investors are kind of like the smarter investors because we're using little cash, but we're winning big, really big, without having to have all the risks that other investors are having by investing thousands and thousands of dollars that could literally be lost in a couple of seconds. And it's interesting that you mentioned that we need to always be looking for that highly motivated seller because literally there are so many all around. Like I've been driving around my neighborhood and I saw a little ad. I still remember what you told me of one of your experiences that look for that ad that says, please kick me kind of thing.
I'm down, kick me.
Exactly. So I saw this tiny little ad on the grass. And it was so little that literally it would be the size of my hand. That's how little it was. But I was just parked and I happened to be parked right next to that street. And it said for sale. And it was not supposed to be a sign for selling real estate. It looked like a sign for like a yard sale kind of thing. So it was like really little ad. I knocked on the door and yes, the seller was actually looking to sell that house. I honestly didn't go for that house because I noticed that the property had problems, like bigger problems than the one that I was like looking for. But in reality, you do see all of these opportunities all around you. They could be little ads that you see online, little ads that you see on the grass, like I did. There are so many opportunities. And the good thing is that when you do get to work directly with the seller, you are choosing your own rate. You're choosing your own mortgage price. You're choosing everything. You have more
You're
leverage.
problem solving. You're trying to find out, why are you selling? I know this is not my business, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Forgive me if I'm maybe asking out of turn here, but what are you planning on doing with the proceeds from the sale? Where are you going? You know,
Exactly.
And you ask it very humbly, and sometimes they won't answer. They'll go, "That's none of your business." Well, fine. The more blunt they are back with you, the more you realize they're not highly motivated to sell.
That's true.
You know, and so don't be offended by that. You just say, well, it would be helpful for me if I could help solve your problem. It would be nice to know a little more detail about you're being transferred. Oh, across the country. When do you take your new job? Now you got information that realize there's a deadline. By the time they leave, they need to have that property sold. So the closer it gets to that deadline, the more motivated they get. Now,
The more desperate, if anything. So
exactly, exactly. So I've said this so many times that people just really have a hard time getting it. I remember working with a group on an unemployment line. I was teaching people how to make money without any cash or credit. They even didn't have a job. And I said, let's go in the marketplace. We're going to look for great deals. And I tried to show them what I knew was a great deal. And the only thing that you need to know to have a great deal is it below the market? 10, 15, 20% below the market, which is very rare. I get that. Number two is, will the seller be willing to carry some of the financing, or do they need all of their equity out in cash? And if they do need it all out in cash, then it's probably not what I'm looking for. I need to have flexibility in either the buying terms or in the price. If I can't get one of those two, then I'm not interested in it. It's just not in my little narrow bull. I have a bullseye, right? So there's a lot of other properties that I could buy.
Right.
Most of them outside the bullseye are retail priced. You know, they're hoping that the seller hopes that they can get all the money and they can go off and buy another property. My bullseye is very narrow. It means I must have a highly motivated seller who will give me one of two things or both. Price or terms or both. If that doesn't fit in that bullseye, don't look. Or write an offer based upon what you would like to make an offer on. Most of the time, that seller is going to say no to it. But just because they wrote you a counteroffer, and by the way, ask them if you do a formal written offer, which is easy to do. You can get an offer at any a stationery store, anywhere. There'll be a real estate offer there for that state.
Or even Google. Yeah.
You can Google it. You can go to a realtor who's a friend of yours. They'll give you a copy of that. You need to make a written formal offer and ask them, please give me a written counter offer if this offer isn't what you want.
That's right.
You need their signature on a written counter offer. So if your offer is too low, and if it may be even offensive to them, because they thought, no, that's I wouldn't even consider that. Just say, please give me the courtesy of a written counteroffer. Even if your counteroffer is exactly the same as what your price is right now. Just give me a written counteroffer so that I know that this is legitimate, because I have investors with me who are ready to buy right now. We are buyers. And therefore, in order for us to move forward, we need to have a written counteroffer from you, or a written or a signed offer from the one we're making you here. Why do I really require that? Because once they've signed their name to the offer, depending upon the time frame it took to close on that deal, if it's 30 days, 60 days, that means you have 30 to 60 days in which, if somebody comes along and wants the property from you at that price, you could literally assign that contract to somebody else, and they could take it over from you in your place. And there's a little clause you put in all your contracts called, whatever your name is, follow it by these words. Every time you write an offer on real estate for the rest of your life, your name, whatever your name is, and/or assigns, meaning and/or whoever you assign this contract to. Therefore, you now have the legal right to assign this contract to somebody else who will close the property in their name.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, you now have a legal option, a legal short-term option. And that means you may not even have to buy it. Now, this technique works very well in hot real estate marketplaces. As marketplaces cool down as they are now, this strategy is a little less likely to work. But the bottom line is no matter when you are, buyer's market, seller's market, you're always going to put those three words in every contract you write for the rest of your life.
That's true. You never know. And the funny thing, I feel like the funny thing about like all of these offers is that the seller, when they get like all of these papers, they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many letters. I'm not going to read them. And they just sign just because they want to sign it.
Yeah.
But they didn't realize that they have that magical word assigned off.
Yes.
So if anything, I feel like our biggest lesson for 2023 as we start this new year is to always look for those opportunities for flexibility. Flexibility by assigning that contract for somebody else. Flexibility by getting a highly motivated seller. Flexibility by having a deal below the market. There's always room for flexibility no matter what. Thank you so much again, Bob. Thank you so much, Bob. And thank you to our audience. So we're going to see you on the next episode. There you have it. Find that flexibility for 2023.